This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up this week, yet again it seems that our Environment Department isn't aware what the right hand is doing and what the left hand is doing. In a landmark decision, the Administrative Court has issued a freeze interim order on the controversial works that have been taking place at Pentakomo on our southern coast, in an area that the highly endangered Mediterranean monk seal calls home. The plans had been to build a port there, and for the moment, that's on hold.
Department of the Fisheries has been doing all this project, survey work, scientific work, saying about how important is this area and how important it is to save the species. But on the other hand, the same department has come to give its approval in this area where we believe will have significant impacts.
Some good news finally on the environmental front. In a landmark decision for environmental justice in Cyprus, and Lord knows we have little enough of that, the Administrative Court has issued an interim order suspending work on the construction of facilities at Pentakomo. Now, what's the significance of this? We're joined by Tassos Chalis, who's a campaigns coordinator at BirdLife Cyprus. They were one of the organisations, along with Friends of the Earth, that asked the court to intervene. Tassos, first of all, I think I could say on behalf of everybody who's concerned about the environment in Cyprus, congratulations. But this is just a holding order, isn't it? Can you tell us exactly what's going on and why it's so important that that beautiful area at Pentakomo is not disturbed any further, because works had already started?
Correct. First of all, thanks for the congratulations. It is indeed a landmark decision. It sets a precedent for the legal proceedings in our country, and we really believe that this decision will improve environmental justice and better implementation of the environmental assessments of any projects into the future. Now, regarding our case and where it's being built, we are essentially started the construction of a harbour to serve the aquaculture, the fish farms in the area. We're not talking about a small fishing vessel port. This is going to be an industrial, large-scale port with so that people understand the extent of it. I mean, it will have eight storages for the companies that will be using it, offices, parking space for 40 cars, and it will accommodate for up to 35 fishing vessels of sizes of 12 meters up to 24 meters, and even one that would be even bigger than 24. So this large-scale port has been unfortunately decided to be built in one of the few remaining coastline areas that are so important for the Mediterranean monk seal. And that's where the big argument and the big opposition has started on our behalf. This area, the location for the build of the harbour, was decided back in 2014. At that time, we were not aware of the importance of that area for the Mediterranean monk seal. It's only after 2019 that publications started coming out of how important it is ecologically. And then in 2023, the port was assessed for its environmental impact assessments.
By whom?
By the Environment Department. And we are part of that committee. What we said from right the beginning, and we are still saying, and that's our main argument and why we're taking the government to court, is that as part of that process where we did the general environmental impact assessment, we should have done also the appropriate assessment, a more specific ecological study to assess whether this port will have an impact on one of the most protected mammal species in Cyprus, but also worldwide, the Mediterranean monk seal, but also to the habitats that are found in the coastal area. That, unfortunately, was not done. And that's why we are saying that we did not ensure, beyond any reasonable doubt, through the environmental assessment, that there will not be negative impacts to the species and the habitats. From then onwards, we started our legal battle. The environmental impact assessment, the environmental approval was issued back in June 2023. We filed our first court appeal at the administrative court in September 2023 against the environmental permit. That did not have much progress up until today. 2024, end of 2024, we realized also that the construction site, the construction works are starting earlier this year. And then we decided, okay, we'll also submit a court appeal against the urban planning permit. So all this process we are seeing now, it's part of our second court appeal against the urban planning permit, against the Polyodomia, the Ministry of Interior. And as part of our court appeal, there is also the tool that you can use, which is the interim order for the suspension of works. So this is what we have achieved and won, this big battle against the issuance of this interim order.
Well, I think it's a legal precedent here in Cyprus, but I have to come back to you about the role of the Environment Department on this. I've been seeing posts by them recently about what they've been doing for saving, was it Banayodis or whatever, a monk seal that was shipped to Greece. They're all cock-a-hoop that he's been brought back and he's fine. And these are the same people who are giving permission for one of the last remaining habitats for the Mediterranean monk seal to live undisturbed. Maybe I should also ask you to explain the importance of the Mediterranean monk seal, because I think we've only got a few dozen of them in Cyprus and something like 400 in the Mediterranean in total.
Yes, along those numbers. I know, and I've been reading the same news as yourself, Rosie, about how much we are doing as a country to protect the Mediterranean monk seal. The latest figures I've heard is that the population in Cyprus is of the order of 20 or 22 individuals. The thing is that, on the one hand, we are trying to protect this species, and measures should be taken, and more should also be taken, and they are not satisfactory. But on the other hand, we are implementing and undertaking works that they are destroying the places where we want these Mediterranean monk seals to call its home. And this area was one of the key areas that was identified through a scientific publication in 2019 that is important, together with the west part of the country, Akamas and Peja, and the east part of the country, Cape Pil up to Cape Gregor. The thing is, the key sticking point for us is that although the location was locked in 2014, as part of the assessment, we did not go back and look at the more recent scientific data of how important this area is. Those were not taken into account. So yes, it's contradictory that on the one hand, the Department of the Fisheries has been doing all this project, survey work, scientific work, saying about how important is this area and how important it is to save the species. But on the other hand, the same department has come to give its approval in this area where we believe will have significant impacts, because it's like what I was also told. You cannot have such a sensitive species that uses the area both for resting, breeding, the caves that are on the coastline, feeding, and on the other hand, putting such an industrial sized harbor right in its back garden of its house. It's like we've gone to someone's home, we went to the backyard and we are throwing a party there, and we think that we will not affect the host of the home. We think it will not be disturbed. We think that it will not degrade his home. Well, we believe differently, and that's why we started this court appeal.
Well, I don't think it's believed, Tassos. It's been proven, hasn't it, that Mediterranean monk seals are rather shy, and particularly in the breeding season, if they're disturbed, they don't breed. It's that simple.
Exactly. And I mean, if we look at the species historically back, everybody thinks that the Mediterranean monk seal uses isolated caves to breed. Well, if you go back to how it's changed its habit patterns, Mediterranean monk seals used to breed on sandy beaches, isolated sandy beaches. And the only reason they changed their habits and they have moved now into caves is because there are none sandy beaches worldwide where this species could do its business and lay its pups and left alone. So yes, the species is sensitive, and we've pushed it to use the caves, and now we're even taking away its remaining habitat that it can call home by bit destroying these beautiful coastlines that we have left in Cyprus.
Where do the boats that would have been and hopefully won't be parked in this area, where do they operate from at the moment?
At the moment, all the fish farms in the area, they use a couple of ports to the east of Governor's Beach. I believe some they use the Zigi harbor, and some others use the harbor that is in the general energy center in Vasiliko area. And this is what we were also saying. We should explore other alternatives. Just because this location was locked back in 2014, and then in 2018, a ministerial council decision decided, yes, let's build a port here, should not exclude the fact that since we have new scientific data, not just some random, new scientific data that prove this area is important, and the location that was locked prior to this data is no longer valid, we should assess with the new scientific data whether this location is relevant and appropriate. And we are not just the environmental NGOs that say that. The same findings came through a report that the General Auditor's Office published back in April 2024. Exactly the same findings, exactly the same recommendations. The General Auditor's Office says, do an appropriate assessment, and you should look for alternative locations to build this harbour.
Sorry, if they've already got boats operating from the other places you mentioned, why do they need a new port?
I think it's a matter of convenience. This will be much closer to the fish farms. The fish farm sector wants its own port. That's how it was presented to us at the beginning of its assessment, environmental impact assessment by the Fisheries Department. This is a 250 million euro industry that would like and wants its own port, where we have aspirations to grow this sector. So we want our own port as close as possible to the fish farms. I think it's as simple as that, why this location was locked there, which is very unfortunate, and something that we are taking to court.
We'll come back to that in a moment. Am I right in thinking that the municipality or the mayor or Muhtar of Pentakomo is also very much against this? And it's not often that you find local authorities saying they don't want some sort of development.
Yes, exactly. I mean, as part of the committee of the environmental impact assessment, the local municipality of Pentakomo had expressed its opposition to the project, as we did as well. But it seems that they were sidelined and just ignored and continued with the approval of it. But yes, they did shout a bit at the environmental committee stage. And I believe also at the time that it was discussed in the Cyprus Parliament, back in October, the General Auditor's report was for discussion. And over there, quite a few members of the Parliament also expressed concerns and their opposition to building this 35 million euro harbour that will be funded by the European Union.
And that's odd as well, because I thought that the European Union was very much behind the whole set of projects that aim to support the Mediterranean monk seal population.
Yes, in general, yes, but it all matters how things are presented and how the Cyprus government has presented this project to be funded under the Recovery and Resilience Plan, because it's sitting under that program of funding. The government is claiming, and the competent authorities, that they've taken all measures and followed all proper procedures for its approval. We are saying, no, this was not followed correctly, and that's essentially the legal dispute and battle that we are starting and have initiated.
Well, if I look at the photographs that I've seen, it's very clear that already whatever work's been done has totally destroyed that area of the coastline.
Yes, it's not irreversible yet, but yes, the actual extension of the port, so that people understand that the size of it, goes 250 meters from the coast into the sea. So at the moment, in the last 3-4 months, 3.5 months that the work started, they've been just dumping a lot of boulders and whatever else they've been doing on the coastal part to make the extension to go outwards. And this is why we have we submitted the interim order, because we know that court appeals take a long time. And that's why we use the interim order for the suspension of the works. And like we said, it's the first time ever that such a decision was approved by the administrative court. So now the works are put on hold until the actual court appeal is resolved, whether we win it or we lose it. But we need to close basically the essence of the court appeal, or if the court decides to withdraw the original interim order. Either the interim order might be removed if the opposite side appeals against us, or we actually start with the legal battle itself and the discussion about whether it was approved correctly or not.
The interim injunction is in place now. How are you going to check that the people who are building this port abide by it? Is anybody able to go and make sure that they're not sneakily doing some more work?
Oh, yes. We will be checking, and we are calling on the people. Thanks for the opportunity of giving me. I'd also like to call anyone listening, if they are in the area west of the Governor's Beach area, that beautiful coastline, and they happen to see any works happening, please let us know. Because from the moment that this interim order was issued, immediately any work should be stopped. And if for any reason there is non-compliance, there are other legal tools now that we can use and we will use to make them understand that this interim order is here to stay until the administrative court decides something different.
Have you any hope that they might indeed decide something different, and are they in a position to, if you like, rescind the order that says, yes, you can build here?
Look, 1 week ago, if you had asked me whether I actually believe we will have an interim order to stop the works, I'll tell you there is not a chance, because we didn't have a president. This had never happened before in Cyprus. So do we have hopes now? Yes, I'm starting to be more hopeful and more positive, and I'm very hopeful also that a lot of the response of the people for funding our legal fees is paying off, because we are also doing a fundraising to cover our legal fees.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. So can you give us the details where anybody who's listening to this and would like to support you, because taking legal action is not cheap, as we know, what should they do?
If they just go on our social media, Facebook, and read our announcements, at the end of those announcements, we provide a link to fundraise our legal fees. And the response of the public has been amazing. So far, we've raised about 6,800 euros, 7,000 euros. We are aiming to raise 20,000 euros to cover our legal fees. And yes, we really thank and we're grateful for all the contributions. And yes, it's just to cover our legal fees, because no environmental NGO has put on its budget, yes, I'm going to start legal battles every year that we discuss on our budgets. But this is something that we were forced in the end to take legal means, because it's the only way to be heard and to stop works like this and future works, because this is a precedent that will be used, and I hope to be used in the future for the next port or the next project or the next any kind of thing that is suggested to be built in a protected area or near a protected area.
Yeah, we didn't talk about protected areas. This is one, isn't it? Or very close to one?
It's close to one. I mean, the protected area that was designated is about 700 meters, the boundary. But we are talking about the species, the Mediterranean monkseed, and also the habitats. Let's not forget the habitats. There is seagrass beds there. There is the caves. So it's all a mosaic of beautiful
biodiversity. Yeah,
exactly. But the species itself, every day it covers up to 40-50 kilometers of distance for feeding. So half a kilometer, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers from a cave that is using for breeding and laying its babies is nothing. We're essentially in the back garden of these species, and saying that this project will not cause and will not have a disturbance to the species.
Well, a lot of people may not think of going to birdlifecyprus.org.cy because we're talking about marine environments. How did BirdLife get involved in this campaign? I know along with Friends of the Earth and I'm sure some other NGOs that care for our environment.
Is because we were part of the Environmental Impact Assessment Committee when this project was discussed. And even though it has nothing to do with birds, above all, our goal is to protect the environment. And this was a clear case to us that things have not been done properly for such an endangered and rare mammal species that we can count these individuals in our own two hands. So that's where we took the decision that despite the fact that it's not bird related, it's about protection, it's about conservation of our environment and our natural habitat, and that's why we decided we will take this case to court.
Well, congratulations on getting the interim order, Tassos. Fingers crossed that the administrative court follows up on this, basically, because it's so important, isn't it, for our wildlife here in Cyprus. When do they sit again? How long will this take?
This will, because now the interim order holds, and suddenly the ball is in the other court now to respond and try and put their facts down and start the essence of the actual of the actual court appeal.
Sorry, who is the other side?
Essentially, for the urban planning permit court appeal is the Ministry of Interior and the Tmima Poliodomias, the urban planning department.
But who's actually funding this port? You said we'll get something from the Recovery and Resilience Plan. That won't be all of it. Who's paying for this?
No, in theory, it's all covered by the Recovery and Resilience. So EU funds, essentially.
Through the government?
This. Who?
Through the government?
Yes, through the government, through the Ministry of Economy. I think it's handling the whole budget for the Cyprus Recovery and Resilience Plan. We're talking about billions of euros under this Recovery and Resilience Plan that has been put in the Cyprus plan. And this is one of the projects that are infrastructure based. It's one of the heavy projects, let's say, that the government had included in its Recovery and Resilience Plan. if not just the only one. The rest has to do with digital transformation, better governance, and a lot of other measures. But this is one of the most infrastructure-based projects that were included. So yes, the funding is coming from the EU.
And through the Department of our Environment.
The Department of the Environment, it was the one that gave the environmental permit. We are also taking the Environment Department to court through our first court appeal, the one that we submitted in September 2023. That is still pending, but at the moment, the one that is the hot potato, let's call it, the one that we are currently having big developments, and we will see in the next few months the court appeal making progress and being discussed in the administrative court, is the second court appeal against the urban planning permit.
I wish you the very best of luck, Tassos. I'm sure we'll talk again after the court meets again and decides whatever it decides. But in the meantime, we'll ask people to look at birdlifecyprus.org.cy or indeed the Friends of the Earth Cyprus. There they can see the pictures I've seen about the destruction of that beautiful area of coastline with its white rocks, and hopefully support your appeal so that you can cover those legal expenses. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you as well, Rosie.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
In other news, the police have been ramping up their crackdown on illegal fireworks, which are part and parcel of the Orthodox Easter celebration. There's been growing concern over the increasing use both of factory-made and also homemade explosives, particularly by young people. There have been injuries in the past at the traditional lambraja, or bonfire, which is lit outside churches after the midnight mass on Holy Saturday. So far, 11 adults have been charged with illegal possession and use of firecrackers and referred to the courts. The police warned that firecrackers are banned in the Republic of Cyprus and that importing, transporting, using or storing them is illegal. He said that they've been running a public awareness campaign for 2 months now, but searches and police patrolling neighbourhoods to find illegal fireworks have definitely been on the up during this Holy Week. Since Easter is the biggest Orthodox holiday, it's highly unlikely I'll have a programme next week because everybody will be celebrating all through the week. So let me just wish you, wherever you are, a very happy Easter and hope to see you in a fortnight's time. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.